So obviously the topic today, we're talking about nanotechnology. And I mean, when I hear that phrase, I automatically start thinking about sci-fi. Most people are going to hear that phrase and either have no idea what the hell you're talking about, or they're going to think that, maybe you're a conspiracy theorist or something's crazy because, the nanobots are being used to give us viruses and infect us. And probably the people at YouTube watching this are going to hear the word nanotechnology and think about a way they could strike the video, right? Because they're like, where can we find medical misinformation? Where can we find a statement? So I want to clarify right now, as we talk about this encroaching topic, that there are no medical claims being made on this show. Nothing here is health advice, and you should continue to get any health advice or medical expertise from your physician. What we're speaking about here is theoretical. What we're talking about may be very real to those who are saying it, but we encourage you to check the facts yourself and to also remember to do your own research. And that note, my name is Elijah Schaefer. I'm the host of Almost Serious. I have amazing guests on today, as well as my co-hosts, who I'll let them introduce themselves. Her name is Sarah Stock. Who are you, and why are you here?
Yeah, I'm Sarah, and I'm a journalist for Vigilant News as of very recently, but I've been doing journalism for about 2 years, and I'm also a college student.
Amazing. And we're here at CPAC in the DC studios if you guys want to know why we're here. And my wonderful guests, the stars of the show today. Sir, introduce yourself. Give us a background, because you guys are very talented, and you are quite the interesting group of fellows.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So my name is Michael Dillon. I'm the founder of airwaterhealing.com. Also the founder of Self Wellness, which is an alternative wellness center in Boynton Beach, Florida, where we proudly use things like sound, energy, light, frequency, and also chiropractic care to try to help the body get into a state where it is the most fine-tuned machine that you could ever have. The great D.D. Palmer said that the power that made the body can heal the body, and we've really embodied that. And,
I like that.
Go ahead, Seth.
My name is Seth Leibowitz, and I'm an artist, mostly tattoo artist, but I like to paint for fun, and usually painting the culture, bringing awareness through art. And I've been working with scientists, doctors that have been working with nanotechnology, and anywhere from working on HAARP, high frequency active auroral research project. The one doctor I've been working with, who recently passed away, Dr. Joseph Resnick, God rest his soul, cleaned up the Exxon Valdez oil spill with his technology. But I've spent the last 4 or 5 years not painting and looking under the barrel of a microscope and working with these doctors, doing research, gathering information, printing, and just trying to get the word out there to protect people. I have a daughter, and I care about her, and I care about other people's children and future of what it means.
Yeah, okay, so let's talk about this. I want to leave today assuming that everybody who's watching this podcast right now has no idea why we're talking about nanotechnology and doesn't even know what nanotechnology is. I mean, you're probably in the same boat, right?
I don't know anything about nanotechnology.
So let's define the term. Let's talk about this. So what is nanotechnology?
Nanotechnology,
what is it?
It's a scale. It could be multiple different materials. So it could be anywhere from silver to gold to zeolite. And it's the size of the material itself is which is the dangerous part of it. So 1 nanometer is 1/80,000th of a width of a human hair. And on that size scale, it has a whole different set of physics on how it interacts with human tissue, water molecules, fungus, spores. And they are spraying this onto us. We're breathing it in. It's in our water. They're using it in our supplements. They're putting it in our foods. There's an article from Grist on December 3rd, 2012, Grist. Nanoparticles in your food. You're already eating them. Think GMOs are bad? Try eating nanoparticles. They tell you about this in movies, in the latest James Bond movie. There's DNA targeted nano weaponry, or the G.I. Joe movie on their nanobots that can devour the Eiffel Tower. So they're getting it, slow leaking it to us in like predictive programming.
Not only is it predictive programming, but the one thing that I've always asked, and Elijah, I'll ask you this. If there is something that's filed patent-wise, right? If somebody files a patent, let's say that your father grew up and he was in the boating business, and one of his buddies had drowned, and he said, you know what? I'm going to come up with a patent for wearable clothes that as soon as it touches the water, it inflates. So if someone's accidentally knocked unconscious, would you agree that if he goes as far as to file that patent, that he has the intention to manufacture that product?
Yeah,
right?
of course. I mean, every engineer knows, the design is what's important, and you do it, and you design something for a purpose. So yeah.
So I start to understand that the more and more that we start looking into these geoengineering patents, and particularly what Seth is saying is the ability to spray nanotechnology. If you look into the patents that have been filed on spraying nanotechnology and how it can affect hormones, how it can affect your ability to reproduce, how it can affect crops, why would you spend all of this time and valuable time filing these patents if it was just going to be a conspiracy?
Okay, so this is what I'm confused about still. You mentioned a bunch of things. You're like, oh, nanotechnology can be this, it can be that. So we're talking about something that is potentially very dangerous, right? We're talking about something that's going to be used as a weapon, a nanotechnology weaponry. And when you say this though, what are we talking about? Because I think of nanotechnology, I'm thinking of like little robots, right? That's sort of what I'm
Correct.
thinking of. But you said it's like that's not exactly what's going on here.
Well, here's the thing. Technology is neutral, right? So, you have a hammer, you could either build a house or you could bash someone in the head with it, which I don't suggest. So the thing about nanotechnology, it could be used for good, but they are weaponizing it. I have a very good friend of mine, a scientist that I've been working for. I don't want to mention his name and out him here, maybe in a future show or something. We could even have him on. But he holds 4 patents on nanomaterials, and it's now being weaponized against the planet and everything on this planet. We're breathing it in, we're eating it. It's in the material of our clothing, and even it can be used in computing systems, quantum computing systems, and whatnot. So
I'm so glad that you brought up quantum computing, because an article, I had seen a podcast a couple months ago, and there was actually a government agency that was already talking about this, Elijah, and they were talking about smart dust,
yes.
right? And specifically, they had zoomed in, and like, imagine if you see like, you zoom in and you see like an iPhone, right? Now imagine going in and seeing 1/1,000,000th of the size of this iPhone, and then going in again. It's like one of those looping things that you see on YouTube where it's a never ending, it just keeps going and going and going. And they're saying that they can have these capacitors, these chips that are literally 1/1,000,000th the size of a grain of rice.
is that the Hitachi article?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I've seen that.
and they were talking about if they were to aerosolize this, and this is military saying that they can do this to map the enemies. Right? They're talking about protecting, of course. This is like anti-terrorism. They're going to promote it like, this is great, we can get this technology. But what happens when they start saying that we're going to use this to be able to protect you? Well, what's the long-term effects of having nanotechnology? And obviously, we're going to try to offer solutions about how to deactivate it. But where does it stop if they start saying, well, this is the only way that we can prevent cancer? Or this is the only way that we can stop the spread of disease? Or what if they say, how many people are so scared about our children being sex trafficked? If we spray smart dust everywhere, we'll be able to map everybody at every time.
It's called nanotagging.
And
is what it is.
And it's for your protection.
Yeah. There's a NASA warfare document 2025, and by Dennis M. Bushnell from NASA.
Good article.
And I think slide 43, it is mechanical to analog aerosolized dust that can mechanically bore into the lung tissue to carry out various pathological missions. And at the very end, it says a wholly new class of weaponry, which is legal. So there's no legal ramifications for this material being sprayed onto the public. And you talk about it and you're labeled a conspiracy theorist, but if they can talk about it, why can't we talk about it? Why can't we bring this to light? Why
So
can't we?
who do you think is behind this? I mean, is this like the deep state? Is it, like
Deep state.
who?
Yeah,
What's
who's
the
interested in
what's
this?
the
That's a good
incentive? Is it a
question.
financial incentive? Is it to control us? What do you think?
Well, I'm glad that you brought up the financial, and I'm going to let Seth answer that in detail, but you brought up the financial aspect, and
Yeah.
that's very good, right? So everybody at this table, this is an open dialogue, right? And I speak by faith, right? Jesus will judge me. Jesus is the only person that will judge me. I will ask all 3 of you sitting here with me, have you heard the term geoengineering?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
of course.
you've heard the term geoengineering.
Yeah.
Correct.
I follow a very popular forensic accountant online, and he follows a lot of geoengineering, all types of activity that are laced or traced back to money. He had reported that the USAID had stopped funding to the state of Florida specifically for geoengineering. And I said, okay, right. Heard it all before, right? We heard
Yeah.
it. Whether this was Doge or it was an investigation, the very next day I went outside, crystal clear blue from coast to coast in Florida for 5 days in a row. had not seen one tic-tac-toe, not one X. Anybody who follows that knows what it is. So obviously where you're digging is going down the right rabbit hole is where do you follow the money? Who's behind it? And if it's as nefarious, elaborate a little bit further for us. Seth.
I feel it's the people that are printing the money. You know, the people that are the kingmakers, I don't know if I can say these family names.
No, it's fine, Sam.
Like what is it? The Orsini families. You know, like these are the
That's
people
where Christopher Columbus came from.
These are the people that control Klaus Schwab. You know, Klaus Schwab is just this ugly puppet. You know, Bill Gates is just an ugly puppet. You know, the face that you want to punch. So these are the people that are, you know, making the policies and passing it on to these people you want to be the face to hate. Do you know what I mean? So these are the people that are in the shadows.
Guys, if you want to get your testosterone levels up, I want to remind you guys, obviously you can inject TRT. It does work. A lot of people, it's expensive. You don't want to do it. You want a natural way to boost your testosterone. I'm not going to lie to you. You've got to change your lifestyle to boost testosterone. Like you've got to change your lifestyle. You've got to do some working out. You got to do some manly things. You got to get some sunlight. You got to go out there. However, there are natural, clinically proven ingredients that do help boost testosterone. However, like fenugreek, IGF, NO2, all these things that you know that are clinically proven to boost testosterone 46%, your body can't absorb them. All these oral tablets that you're taking, it's breaking down in your gut. So the only other way between doing tablets in your gut and injecting these things is sublingual delivery system, meaning under your tongue, direct to your bloodstream. How do you get it into your bloodstream? How do you boost the testosterone? How do you get, go from 2% to 98% absorption? Well, there's a special carbon delivery method. It's an actual packaging system that was patented by an American scientist for Americans. It's absolutely amazing. Some of you guys have been taking this for like 3-6 months. You've seen the benefits of getting your T boosted. It's given you more tenacity, more grit. You get better libido. There's this guy that cries in the comments every time that I mention that you can get better erections. He literally cries on X. He's like, every show you mention an erection. It's like, yeah, well, it's an ad. And it's important. Some guys get old and they sometimes have a trouble in bed and it's kind of embarrassing. So not talking about myself, I'm just saying some guys, you know what I mean? That's very important. Yeah. Just some people, you know what I mean? And this is a huge bottle. Some say the biggest bottle possible, right? It's really big. Anyways, it doesn't need to be any bigger than this. This is the exact size that you need. It's perfect. You got to check it out. The average grip strength of a man today that's 18 is weaker than a 65-year-old man was in 1950. That's how bad T levels are. That's not even a joke. So boost your testosterone with Man's Edge. Get the absorption that you need. Pair this with increase of some exercise. Move around a little bit and see your testosterone increase. Buy one, get one free on auto ship. Plus get 10% off with my code Elijah at ElijahIGF1.com. ELIJAHIGF, the number 1.com. Links on the screen and the description. 60% off 2 bottles. Plus, you can check out their other products, by the way, including the IGF1 Plus Titanium X 600,000. You know it's good because it's got 600,000 in the name. So check it out.
It is kind of interesting. I always find that evil people can't not talk about the evil they do, right? So a good example would be, there was a time where you couldn't question the election here on YouTube, right? And they said you couldn't question it, but then there was that famous article, I think it might have been from the Times, but I'm not entirely sure which publication, where they came out and talked about, look, the 2020 election wasn't rigged, okay? It wasn't rigged. However, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, the owners of X which was Twitter at the time, every major publication, Jeff Bezos, did all come together with the intelligence industrial complex and meet it in a room and decide how they could rig all of their own platforms and businesses to ensure that Donald Trump didn't become president. But that's not the same thing as rigging the actual election, right? They just did everything around actually rigging an election. And again, why did they do that? Why did they come out and write an article telling us what they did for the 2020 election? And you know what? I think that it's not enough to do something that evil and diabolical. They are prideful about it and they want to boast about it. It's sort of like a God complex, right? It's this egotistical, look what I can do and I got away with it, and F you too. You think it's happening? It's worse than you thought. And I'm going to tell you that I did it, and what are you going to do about it? So I get why people sometimes just do evil things. What I'm not understanding here, and I think is probably important to the viewer, is, okay, we have evil people that want to do evil things. Everybody knows about that. But what is the benefit here of weaponizing nanotechnology and pushing it upon the populace Like, what is the immediate benefit to these people? Because wouldn't they also be affected themselves?
The
Can I,
imme-
can,
oh,
can-
good.
I was going to say, can I ask you a very simple question? How familiar are you with Hegelian dialectic?
Zero understanding of what that even is. So go ahead.
So Hegelian dialectic is problem, reaction, solution.
Okay.
They've been using it for thousands of years to control and manipulate people. So I'll ask you a question. If my long-term goal is to make sure that there's tons of people that are sick, I'm going to make sure that I am poisoning their food. I'm going to make sure that I have them entertained. They're in a coliseum, right? They're being entertained. We're watching football, watching basketball. We're eating lots of plants that are making us sick. And I say, you know what? The guys that are at the very top of the organization, right? We're talking beyond the Black Rocks and the State Streets and Vanguards. They own the hospitals. They own the cable companies. They own the medical industry. They own the pharmaceutical industry. If you're full to your belly, you're not going to go out and go shopping, and you're not going to go to a restaurant to eat because you're fed, right? Healthy people don't walk into hospitals. So if they're looking at trillions of dollars in lost revenue, hypothetically speaking, you've got people like RFK that are doing this MAHA movement, and they're saying, man, you know what? People are finding out that seed oils really are bad. And now we're already seeing a decline. Why did the cigarette manufacturers that were there when people found out that cigarettes were leading to cancer, why did they start buying all of the processed food companies and say, how can we make the food more addictive? How can we do that? We've got to keep our customers sick.
Well, they have to manufacture a problem so they can give you the solution.
And again, I can tell you, like, I'll dive into my research with methylene blue and calcium EDTA, you know, what air water healing is doing, and why we're working with guys like Seth is there a possibility, like Elijah just said, why would they do something that could possibly be poisoning themselves unless they already know how to mitigate it? Unless
That's
they
a good
know how to
point.
mitigate it, and then they suppress the truth.
Yeah.
And say, oh, you know what? Who cares if thousands of people, and I'm not going to sit here and say that they're living beyond some ice wall where you're going to get shot down if you go over, and they're flying there back and forth. They're going to be exposed to the same thing that we are. Right? It's like the doctor, whether it's verified or not. I remember very clearly that doctor came out and said that none of Bill Gates' kids have been vaccinated.
Well, they're getting the saline.
Or saline.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or the cap on.
That's a conspiracy.
Yeah, but
That's one of my
okay, so,
favorites.
so that makes sense because that's sort of like the common bait and switch in the movie thing where, like, you know, you both drink the poison, but then the guy says, but I drank, you know, the antidote or whatever right before. It's like, I get that. So you're saying that they have the problems that they're creating. This problem here would be somehow using these technological sprays and particles that have various types of outcomes. Some could be for control, some could be for mapping, some could be to make us sick. Like there's kind of endless opportunities right here.
Multifaceted
But they're never going to release something like a patent for something if they don't already have the antidote. If they don't already have something that can make them. But that would be such a small group of people. How could you keep that information out for so long? It seems like this is going to backfire a little bit, like what happened in Wuhan, right? Where you know I won't go into that, but it seems like this could just backfire.
It's compartmentalization. So you have small groups of people working on one thing. You know, this hand isn't touching this hand, but they're making one item. You know, I have a friend that works for Lockheed Martin. And there may be 12 different departments working on one project. None of them ever even meet each other. So they don't even know what they're working on. They're working on a cog to a machine. Do you understand what I'm saying? So like nobody even really knows, oh, well, I'm building the death ray that's going to kill my children. Do you know what I mean? So
Did you ever watch McMillions? Have you seen McMillions?
No.
So McMillions is, and I'll just throw this out there. I remember everybody, and it was a great time. It was a great time when McDonald's was still using beef tallow, right? The Monopoly game. Remember the Monopoly game for McDonald's? They found out that it was rigged. There was one guy at the very top that was getting the winning game pieces from the company that was manufacturing it, and they were sending them in envelopes. And when you trace down the whole thing, when the FBI got in, it was so big that nobody knew the investigation was going on. It was the biggest investigation that the FBI had ever launched into corporate espionage. The people at McDonald's didn't even know. that there was an investigation going on. The manufacturer of the game pieces, the marketing company, it was like this secret task force that they had created.
Oh my
so
gosh.
when you figure like even just a localized little small department of the FBI can launch this large corporate espionage investigation without anybody at the corporate level of McDonald's, shareholders, nobody knew what was going on. And they had got all of the people that had committed the crimes to all come in and start sharing the testimonies. They built this huge RICO case of going in and getting all of this corporate espionage and nobody, the left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing, which was it was unbelievable how they were able to get that, you know, and you say, oh, on a grand scale, how could they get away with it for this long and not anybody know about it?
It's like, I feel like I was like, wow, I'm just finding out about this for the first time right now. I feel like Trump, you know, finding out that Ruth, when she died, may she rest in, you know, I guess in peace, but she was a terrible woman. Anyway, I was thinking about this, you know, so obviously I came in here thinking nanotechnology. I was thinking of nanobots. I guess I watched too much G.I. Joe growing up, you know, and you're saying that part of the reason why I think that is because it was predictive programming. Like they are trying to get you to, they're saying we're going to be doing this, we're working on this. But you kept talking about patents in the beginning. How do you know about this? And why don't I know?
It's public knowledge.
Okay.
You just have to know where to look. You know, which rock are you picking up to look underneath? And I unfortunately somehow landed, even when I was 16 years old, hanging out with these two girls, made friends with these two girls' father because I was painting aliens on his Humvee. He used to work for NASA. I didn't get to grow up normal. You know, I was making my own books and passing them out at family reunions on, you know, HARP. He worked on HARP. He worked on Exxon Valdez oil spill, invented stealth Radex paint that absorbs radar. So I would sit there and, you know, take breaks on airbrushing aliens on his Humvee back in the day. You know, his Humvee, the license plate said 80GRAND. And I'm like, what does 80 grand mean? He's like, I'm so sick of everyone asking me how much this thing costs. Because back in the early 90s, you didn't see Humvees driving around. You know what I mean? So here, you know, talking about ion propulsion, talking about nanotechnology, that's how I learned how to research these things out. This isn't anything. You know, people are worried about their cell phones or their TV show at night or you know, their Keurig or, you know, these meaningless things. Not meaningless, you know, everybody has, you know, importance to the things that they like. But to me, it's the future generations. To me, being human, free range human, you know, is important.
Free range human, that's a trippy phrase, man. Because my eggs are free range, you know what I mean? But like it is, we are a little bit like cattle in industrial farmland, right?
Exactly.
But people say that it's an experiment. But okay, so let's talk about something without talking about something. Can you get on my wavelength here? Is that what we saw in 2020? Was that it? Was this a test run or what was that?
Are you familiar with lipid nanoparticles?
A little bit in my work, but but yeah,
it's a synthetic fat. So which can trick your cell membrane into allowing it across the cell membrane.
Correct.
And if you go into the patents, even on NIH.gov, you know, you can type in self-assembling nanomaterials on NIH.gov. Just that's Tony Fauci's website. Look it up. Be like, oh, bam, wow, there's tons of stuff here on it. You know, titanium dioxide, whatever. But anyway, getting sidetracked. The lipid nanoparticle, once it's across the cell membrane, being pulsed at 18 gigahertz 3 times within 60 seconds can make a lipid nanoparticle swell up and burst. Wow. Delivering the payload. Now, what is the payload, you ask? The payload could be multiple things. There are patents on something called VLP. Okay, so I'm going to say LNP for lipid nanoparticle. VLP is a virus-like particle. It's a protein. I brought something here just to show you. Are you familiar with buckyballs?
Oh yeah, so
you know, little magnetic balls that can rearrange. So if this was nanomaterial all mashed like that, that's a non-template formation of nanomaterials. So arrange that into a cube, that is a template formation according to their documents. So let's get back to these VLPs.
I don't need that. I have 2 sons at
You're
home. I
like,
already
I
have
don't know
enough
where
of
that
that
thing's
stuff.
been.
I have enough of
Like,
those.
that guy just pulled that out of his pants.
He's like, you ever seen my buckyballs? Reaches into his pants. I was like, wow.
It was my back pocket too. So.
Usually you can pay for the show.
Yeah, did
no,
you smell?
but see, so we have this. So yeah, so now
Okay.
it's in a square.
So it's in a square. So with the virus-like particles, they can be rearranged using electromagnetic frequency. So your cell phone, your TV, your iPad, your computer, whatnot, we're being bombarded with all these, frequencies. So now, using a certain set of frequencies, once these VLPs are exposed outside of the lipid nanoparticle, can rearrange themselves to mimic a biological pathogen. So Ebola, Marburg, H1N5 or H5N1 or whatever you want it to be. You hit it with a certain frequency, and these things arrange in a certain pattern to mimic a biological pathogen in the human body. So that's a pretty serious effect on the masses. You see these towers. We're driving on the way here. I said, Mike, you see every single building has those panels on it. This is crazy. We're like being fried as we're driving down the road. It's just insane. So who's to say, what was that? Was that October 4th, 2023? They hit us with that test. Everyone was like, "Oh, I'm going out in the country. I'm
The
shutting my
Aurora
phone off."
Borealis effect. Are you talking about where they were seeing the Aurora Borealis all over the coast?
No, they did a phone test, I
The
believe.
5G?
Yeah, I think it was October 4th, 2023.
Where people were
Don't quote me on
wrapping, they
that.
were wrapping their phones in
Yes.
aluminum foil and
Yes.
putting it in the microwave to create a Faraday cage.
Yes,
yes.
exactly.
I think it was October 4th.
So
2 years
that
ago.
I'm not saying that is what happened. That would be a perfect opportunity for something like that to happen.
So a lot of this to a critic would sound like conjecture, right? Because it's a lot of it sounds like there's an enemy and you don't know who he is, but he could be anyone,
Yep.
and you can't prove it's not happening, but it could be happening, and there's no way to stop it. And it's like, okay, it sounds like it could sound to somebody like you're just trying to sell fear, right? And there's a lot of fear merchants out there, but you talked about the fact that's why I wanted to go back to the patents. You have evidence for this.
Yes.
Okay, so what is your evidence for this? Because I feel like there's probably whoever's doing this would have a system set up to discredit anyone who would be trying to expose this, fact checkers, whatever it would be. I'm sure that exists. So there's going to be critics. There's going to be people immediately come in and be like, this guy's full of shit. This is totally dumb. What is your evidence?
Have you ever heard of the IEEE? Anybody here at this table heard of the IEEE?
You and
Okay.
you and I discussed
So
this.
your toaster, these microphones, your cell phone, CERN. You're familiar with CERN?
yeah.
None of that technology gets out into the world unless it's approved by the IEEE. That's the Institute for Electronics, Engineers, and Engineering.
My hydrogen bottle is
hydrogen-
approved by the
By the
IEEE.
IEEE. So there are doctors and scientists that are, this is what I'm trying to expose. There are doctors and scientists like Dr. Ian F. Achilles, Dr. James Giordano. And these are university doctors. And they're doing lectures at West Point. And they're doing lectures, and it's so crazy because even Dr. Ian F. Achilles, he's got this Italian student, Massimo, who's like, Dr. Ian F. Achilles, oh, I love you so much. They worship these people, and they're sitting there telling you what they're doing in these lectures, and so it's out there. It's not something that it's just a conspiracy theory. You just have to know where to look, how to look, and if you go through the IEEE documents. Actually, you and I cannot because we're not engineers. You have to be an engineer to have access. And then some of these documents cost anywhere from $30 to $300. I have friends that are engineers, electronic engineers. They've given me access to that. I don't even know if I don't want to out anyone, but yeah. So I have access to some of these documents and it is real. Like if you type in CERN, White Rabbit, IEEE, or energy harvesting from the human body, IEEE. It comes right up on Google. You'll
That
see
sounds
it.
so nefarious.
Yeah. And they're using three
energy
different types of
harvesting.
energy harvesting from the human body, IEEE. You see that they're using 3 different types of nanobiosensors that are already in your body: piezoelectric, thermoelectric, and electromagnetic.
Can we prove that? Can you share something with them?
Yeah.
Okay, so the human body, the human body itself, the way that God made it, the human body generates and possesses no ability to create a magnetic field, meaning that we weren't built like adamantium, like Wolverine, right? I'm going to take this simple paperclip. He works a very healthy diet. I've seen the way he eats. Organic, he gets his own sourdough bread, which means if he's eating organic and watching everything that's going in, he buys grass-fed, grass-finished beef. I take methylene blue and calcium EDTA on a daily. I am now getting him on the regimen. I'm going to take this paper clip and I'm going to give it to Seth. And I would like Seth to demonstrate for you.
Well, what happened was in 2021, I started documenting the injection point for everybody being magnetic. We all saw the videos, you know. And actually, Owen was the one that broke this news. He was the first person. I thought I was losing my mind when I found out that everyone is magnetic. Not at the injection point, because none of us took the injection, correct?
No.
No.
So
I already know that.
proving to my mother's husband where I'm sticking spoons to his arm and then to his forehead. He's like, oh, we're all magnetic. Oh, look at me. I can stick a spoon on my nose. I've always put a spoon on my nose. And I'm like, yeah, that's using the curvature and whatnot.
And moisture,
And
or
moisture.
the stickiness.
I'm sticking a spoon to his arm where, you know, it's like... it's not even resting. There's only one tiny little point of that, you know, the concave.
He's literally could be doing lymphatic drainage work. Like,
So that's
you know,
only
jumping up
people
and
who
down.
took the injection?
That's what I thought.
At
That's
the
what I
injection
thought.
point.
At the
That's-
injection point, not on
Okay.
the other arm. And then I found out to prove to him that we're not magnetic, I stuck the spoon to my head and moved my hand and had a spoon stuck to my head. I'm like, what the F? So I went on this long journey and pretty much contacted everybody I know to let them know that, let me see if I could get this thing.
It's already there.
Yeah.
So we're just all magnetic?
So, yeah, we're all
Wait,
magnetic.
can I try it?
Yeah. On women, it's mostly around the chest. So
let's not do that.
We're gonna get so many views on this video.
Coins are good. Keys are great. Does anybody have a key on them or anything? Like
No.
that? No.
I'm traveling.
Well, quarters are great. Even non-ferrous materials like aluminum. I've had aluminum cans. I've had orgonite. I'll send some photos over of my research so you can post some of those. The AirPods that are little magnetic AirPods, you know, stick right to the forehead. It's pretty wild. Mostly on the males, it's right here on the sides of the head, right here. Females, right here.
I've seen phones. We've
take
seen
a cell phone,
phones.
just
You literally take a phone and
Yeah.
go like that. The girls
Yeah.
can literally lean forward and go like this. And the one thing that I want to make sure that we're telling people is if you see this, please, let me see your metal cup here. There's no magnet on this, right? This is actually metal. So what Seth was demonstrating, the magnetism is inside of us. So this isn't a magnet. This isn't sticking to some metal that was, you know, in some, because I understand people would come up and they go, well, if you take a magnet and you put it to a meat, if that cow had a lot of corn and there was a lot of iron in there, that's not what it is.
It's called magnetofection.
Correct.
Magnetofection is being caused by, transfecting cells. So transfecting cells will also allow things across the cell membrane that normally would never be allowed. There's a chemical company in Berlin, Germany called Chemicell, CHEMICELL.com. When you go to the website, click in the upper right corner, download full PDF. You'll go down to like slide 7, I believe, and you'll see they sell 2 different products. One's called CombiMag and one's called Polymag. Now, introduced to the body, it starts pulling the ferritin out of the hemoglobin, the iron out of the blood, forming nano-sized rods that can permeate the blood-brain barrier and fall host into the brain, turning your head into a neurotransmitter and receiver. That's not the purpose that they say in the document itself, but that's basically is what it's doing. So with this, you know, they're saying, oh, this is nanomag screen. This is great for nanomedicine. Nanomedicine, yeah, that's how they're selling it to you for your safety. Do you know what I mean? But like I said, this is all weaponized against us. Multifaceted agenda. You know?
I have a question.
Mhm.
Do you think that maybe some of the people who are behind this are just trying to, in a way, use it for good by making humans just live longer or live forever? But there might be some like transhumanist agenda behind that.
It's a very transhumanist agenda.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you have people like Yuval Noah Harari and, you know, Sam Altman, Larry Ellison. And, you know, they want to upload their consciousness. They will be AI gods that will dominate us. You know, we already have nano biosensors. All 4 of us at this table have nano biosensors in our body. They are being monitored. According to the IEEE documentation, they self-assemble using electromagnetic frequency. So we're being hit with particles that aren't assembled. Once in the body from breathing it, drinking it, eating it, whatever. with the electromagnetic frequency, they assemble within the body and become the nanobot. It's not a nanobot that you're being exposed to. They become the nanobot once they self-assemble.
Okay, so that's what I was going to say. So they're giving you some sort of like an inhalant or some sort of an aerosol, and then this is mimicking some sort of a natural molecule in your body, or just some sort of a lipid or something like that. And it's penetrating through. This is what I don't understand. So if the EMF signal or the control signal can cause a form shift, right, of the particle, what is guiding the particle through the membrane barrier to its target destination? Because obviously sometimes that could be hard to predict. And I mean, that's a technological, that'd be hard if it's so small, right?
Nanomaterials are so small, they're in between interstitial fluids, in between
Correct.
cells.
But how would it get delivered to us? Let's say we want to be delivering that inside of the cell. How are we going to get the body to recognize, and like, why would a lipid not just integrate into the bilayer? Why would it transfer, let's say, into the cell? Like, why would it behave outside of its normal position inside of a cell? Like, I don't understand, because it's like, well, what's the point of it? So does it go into the bilayer, and then you put an EMF signal, and then it changes form that bursts the cell or something like that? Or like, I'm just kind of confused on like what this actually is doing.
They all have different purposes.
Okay.
Each and every single particle and each and every single one. I see like, I love a certain gentleman who's selling toothpaste that has nano silver in it. I love his rough, gruff voice, whatnot, but I just want to like shake him and be like, dude, you're selling something that there are silver nano biosensors. There are zeolite nano biosensors. There are gold nano biosensors. And according to the IEEE, this documentation is real. So it's just another way to get it into the body. They all have different purposes. They all have different effects. They all have different ways that they interact with the tissue. So it depends on the material, and the way, the frequency it's hit with, and, the way it interacts with that specific tissue. So, I mean, we could go into this. I'd probably want to be more specific depending on what.
So is this the kind of thing? I read this book when I was a kid. It was like an Alex Rider, if you know what that is, like a spy book. And there's this billionaire who's using nanotechnology to basically, I think all these people got a vaccine. I think that's what it was actually from.
Oh.
And then there's this, evil billionaire. He has a button on a remote.
Yeah.
All these people die on a plane, and it's like this mystery. The protagonist has to figure out, what happened. Is it kind of like that, where they could literally, I don't know, pull some kind of trigger and people could have like a heart attack?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. If you listen
so that's
to
that's going to be a real thing.
Dr. James Giordano from the University of Georgetown doing a lecture at West Point. You just go onto the YouTube and look this up right now. And he makes a big joke. He's like, if your buttholes aren't slamming shut by the end of this lecture, then I'm not doing my job.
Wow.
Right.
And he talks about aerosolized nano weaponry, and he talks about causing strokes and heart attacks in an instant. And
For assassinations?
terrifying.
Yes. Is this an assassination type of thing?
He
Okay.
talks about lacing a pen tip or a rim of a glass of somebody that's a leader of a resistance, and by the time they get to their army or their group or whatever, their mind has been usurped and the whole thing has been de-escalated.
Yeah.
And Dr. James Giordano, this is one of the people that need it exposed.
So let me ask you this, Seth, because this is where it gets so kind of crazy, because when you start thinking about the technology, like we're talking about nanotechnology, we're talking about how it's being delivered. One of the things that comes to my mind, and this is somebody that I have vetted, I've seen the documents. I'll just ask all of you, are you guys familiar with Janet Phelan?
No.
No.
So I had Janet Phelan on. I had the pleasure of interviewing her about 4 or 5 years ago. And Janet Phelan had exposed that throughout the United States, in a lot of major cities, there is a secondary water line. The secondary water line was put into the infrastructure. And she found it out because there was somebody that was the engineer that was developing this water line. And she had said in her documents that, they were doing this as a off-grid project. And it was to be able to possibly improve the water quality. So she started asking the hard questions is, if I wanted to, say in this certain neighborhood, I wanted to increase the chlorine concentration, but I didn't want it to go over here, they said, absolutely, we could do that. So then she also asked, well, what if they wanted to deliver, cancer-causing materials? What if they wanted to be able to wipe out an entire street to not draw a red flag if all of a sudden, you know, like where I live in West Palm Beach, Florida, we had these huge cancer clusters that were coming up with people getting glioblastomas because of chemicals that were being dumped from the, I think it was like the where the Seminole Pratt Whitney, where they had all that stuff. You can go on and Google it, the whole thing. If they're able to deliver these nanobots into water to where now you're just drinking it, you can go through, you have to start asking yourself the long game, right? My biggest concern with all of this, you know, Elijah, was what if they were able to have this nanobot, which we already know with the self-assembling stuff that they're able to do, is what if they're able to use the technology, whether it's 5G or even our own Wi-Fi router, and they say, hey, let's just take something as simple as the idea of a concept of mold, right? No one here at this table will disagree that mold is bad, right? Mold is called the silent killer. And my work, you know, with my expertise in HVAC, working with biochemists, working with guys that worked at Raytheon Missile Defense, Hughes Aircraft, ran hundreds of engineers here in Washington, D.C. You take bread, sourdough, can be your regular sourdough bread that you make at home, and you put it on the counter in a bag. And then you take the same exact bag from the same exact recipe and you go set it next to your Wi-Fi router. Which one do you think is going to mold first?
The Wi-Fi one.
And it spreads like crazy.
600,000 times faster.
600,000 to 700,000 times from the research that's coming out.
Wow.
So now you've got children who are sleeping in houses next to these Wi-Fi routers.
Smart meters.
Now they're coming out and people are saying, well, you know, the iPhone puts a disclaimer in there that this isn't supposed to be more than 3 centimeters close to your face.
5 millimeters.
5 millimeters. Yeah. So people are walking around like, you know, no one's walking around like this. We all have it this private conversation. Mom calls.
What if you sleep with it under your pillow?
That's terrible.
Very, very
I'm not
bad.
saying I do that.
Yeah, especially plugged in. Plugged in is even worse.
So Elijah, these are the questions. You know, it's like, you know, asking the tough questions here. I'm asking the tough questions because where does it end? Where do they draw the line?
Yeah, but here's what I want to know. Okay, so all this stuff we kind of already know Wi-Fi is bad for you, right? I mean, like, it's even in newer builds, they're starting to like put the routers inside of closets, you know, and they typically are in the master bedroom, but they're already sort of probably predicting some sort of lawsuits in the future. So they're keeping them from being free range or put them in like metal cases and whatnot, obviously, so that people are not actually living and moving so much close to those routers. But we understand that people know that cell phones are messing, particularly with sperm count, right? People know that their doctors already tell you to not put your phone in your front pocket because it can mess with your fertility as a man, right? So we do know these things, and they're widely understood. How much worse is the situation right now with everything that's going on with this nano warfare? And if it is so widely understood and known, why does someone like Donald Trump, who's obviously a target of assassinations multiple times by gunshot, and probably many more that we don't know about, why would he be using a phone? Why does he have a Wi-Fi router in Mar-a-Lago? I've been there. Why was there Wi-Fi routers everywhere? Why are these people retarded? Or like, you know what I'm saying? Or why is it that you know this and you're careful, but the wealthiest, one of the most powerful and wealthy people in the world and of the greatest empire doesn't seem to care or apply this information to his own life?
Seth is the person just like me, where if your ultimate price that you're willing to pay is death, then you can't be bought. You can't be bought, right? Jesus did not die on a cross for us to be stuck into this world where we're basically a Faraday cage and we're breathing in all of these metals. You have to rip off the Band-Aid, and the approach that's happening now, like Elon Musk just exposed that there's millions of people that are older than anybody that's ever lived on Earth that are receiving Social Security. It is fraud at the highest level. Yeah. Right? I was talking with Grant Cardone earlier today. He was saying, you know, if you talk about us wasting $7 trillion or blowing $7 trillion, every dollar that was put into a bank is lent out at 10 times that rate. So that $7 trillion was $70 trillion in circulation that was going out, right? We're putting that money. It is such a big game. And it is so scary to understand that you cannot disrupt that game. Donald Trump was doing what he thought was best. They came to him and said, hey, this is all of the leading science. They're coming here and this is what they're saying. But you have to understand that scientists will always come to the conclusion that they're paid to come to.
Yeah.
But I want to tell you guys about something important. Obviously, we've been talking a lot about, the toxicity of political ideologies, a lot of what's going on in the world. But many of you know that my family's been using these products from Van Man. These are products you use every day, right? This is a beef tallow balm. I don't use beef tallow balm. Yeah, but do you use lotion? Do you use petroleum jelly? We're talking about Vaseline, different things to moisturize. Chapstick. Do you use pawpaw ointment to my Aussies? The question is yes. Maybe you do, but you got to get something that has no petroleum in it. This is made from tallow with honey balm and essential oils, all natural products. I remember I've used tea tree oil before, which I need to put some more on my scalp because I have psoriasis. It's from getting jabbed when you're a kid. That's how you get that, by the way. And one of the things is that I remember when I finally actually visited a forest of tea trees in Australia, and I was like, oh, this smells really nice. And it's like, it's a real tree. Like you hear these names, some chemicals are synthetic, some are natural, some tea tree oils come from the tea tree. Kind of crazy.
Who'd have thought?
Now, so sometimes products have names of chemicals you can't pronounce. Well, this is a natural moisturizer that works, keeps your face from cracking. It looks good. Plus, they have, fluoride-free tooth powder, aluminum-free deodorant, and my favorite for the summer is the carcinogen-free sunscreen. It's pure zinc. It looks nice, and I love it because I can cake my son's face. I love doing this to him on purpose. Did your moms ever do this to you? Just cake you
yeah.
with sunscreen
Oh, yeah.
to where you're just whiter than hell. But I like doing it to my son intentionally. I just put ton on his face and his back, and I put handprints on his back of actual sunscreen. It's cute, right? He's like a little kid's running around handprints all over him of sunscreen. No, but its stuff really works wonders. And get it 10% off today at vanman.shop /Elijah, promo code Elijah. So vanman.shop, promo code Elijah for 10% off. Links in the screen in the description, guys. I'm telling you, get the zinc facial sunscreen because in the summer I try to wear it every day. I wake up, I put zinc sunscreen on because I just don't want to age more than I already have. People don't know this, but when you're writing grants to the NIH, trying to get funding for research projects, they usually make you write in your proposal how your project connects to and further helps our understanding of evolution. Very, very weird thing. And I've always thought that was such a strange thing, especially when your project has nothing to do with evolutionary biology. And it's such a dogma or dogmatic religio control method. And part of that is to root out any type of research that would undermine evolution. Yeah. So they have control methods even in to where you get the funding to ensure that everything you're doing keeps up the scientific industrial complex rather than actually figures out the truth, right?
Yeah.
So it seems so ironic. I'm trying to find out the truth, and I'm already having to agree to parameters to look for the truth.
Yeah,
what if my truth contradicts evolutionary biology? Oh, well, then you can't get a grant from the NIH. And so it's I always thought that was weird, and I was always very troubled filling out and lying on my grants how it would help evolutionary biology because it never would. So I don't know. People don't know that, but it's rigged at the very numbers.
You can explain this. Explain user fees. Explain user fees with the FDA in particular.
Well, what do you mean user fees?
So when you and I were talking about this about if you come out and you want to have a drug tested, right?
Oh.
If the FDA is relying on 50% of their funding coming from the very people that are seeking their approval, it's not a good system for the people that are living in it.
Literally, do you know what? I mean, this is unrelated to the nanotechnology, but in the way bureaucracy works that way is, I was wondering why the USCIS, the immigration, my wife is obviously a dual citizen, and I was wondering why it takes so long to process immigration work. Why is it that these people at the border can get on an app and get immediate asylum and get into the country and get a phone and get money and get to a hotel and get everything, but I have to spend $10,000 and take 5 years to get my wife here? Why? I was wondering, why does it take so long? And I was just getting really angry because oh, by the way, she'll get her replacement green card in 3 years. Sorry, it was lost. It's gonna take 3 years to process the paperwork. And I went, and it's 30-page forms and stuff. So I looked this up. I go, you know what? How much of the USCIS budget comes from filling out forms? I wanted the user fee. How much is coming from the user fee? And it started out as, nothing, and it was just paid for by the taxpayers. And every decade, they've added another 40 to 60 forms into their database. And now it's I might be a little bit off the numbers, but I was looking and it's up close to 90% of the funding for this big org is coming from filing paperwork. And the process used to be simple. It used to be one form and you filled it out. And now it's several years, several dozens of pages of forms you have to keep filling out, and then the next step. And it's just a system to just generate money to keep a government
organization running. They need to, by the way, Doge needs to audit the immigration department because it is so bloated and disgusting how they do that. But like, take that with every other method. All people want is people just want to make money. They want power and control and wealth. And I think it's kind of weird. If we're already seeing this corruption at the government level, I want to know, this is what we're able to find. Do you think we're going to be finding anything with Doge that uncovers some of what's going on with, what you're talking about with this, make America healthy again, everything? Are we going to be uncovering this? Are Americans going to get exposed to what's going on behind the scenes? Or is this going to remain something that only a select few seem to care about or understand?
Well, just like, big tobacco and big pharma, big cell, I guess you could say, a big cell tower, they're, the lobbyists as well. So I guess depending on how far RFK wants to take it. I have heard him talk about geoengineering and aerosolized stratospheric aerosol injection and EMF radiation and the dangers of that. Now, is he going to go as far into going into IEEE documentation saying your Wi-Fi tower is drone technology and it's monitoring your nano biosensors and reporting back to your personal digitwin, monitored by AI to run predictive analytics on you for every eye blink for up to 40 days? No, he's probably not going to go into that. But
Scary.
It is. I mean, this is technology. You go to these IEEE documents. You are being monitored, and they're using your LED lights. This is why the big deal about the incandescent lights and the LED lights.
Making incandescent lights illegal. Should that raise alarms with people?
There's a reason for that.
Making a light bulb illegal.
Have you driven at night lately? Have you seen the infrastructure change? That's called optogenetics. Optogenetics is you almost need a genetic editing, which we're all been exposed to multiple different things. Other people have taken injections for this. We have a compound in your eyes called rhodopsin. Rhodopsin is like blue-green algae. They use the rhodopsin to take sunlight and convert it to energy, correct? Mm-hmm. Well, with your eyeballs getting hit with these certain light frequencies, take that light frequency and it affects the way your ion channels open and close and your nerve synapses. Right. So technically, if you look up optogenetics, it's mind control through light frequency. And this is like 2007 tech. This isn't even new.
You know what? I want to just confirm this. It's like, if people know how crazy we're being lied to, like we were told, I used to take them when I was younger, SSRIs, right? And they literally made me insane. I actually took them and I ended up flushing them down the toilet because I was like, this is not helping depression. And then I found out, like a lot of men, it was my lifestyle that I was depressed. It was the things I was eating and the way that I was behaving, right? It's like, if you're just being degenerate and you're not taking care of yourself, you'll feel empty and helpless. And but they tell you, right? Live this way degenerately, and you should be fine, and then you end up not fine, and then they say, well, that's because you don't have these pills, right? So they give you these SSRIs, and it almost seems like medical disinformation, but then it comes out that's like, there's never been a study proving that SSRIs do anything with how they're marketing. And then the pharmacy companies were like, well, yeah, I mean, it was just like, it's just that you shouldn't believe the commercials. It's just a commercial. Like, it's just a marketing strategy. Just like saying that McDonald's is going to make you your kids the happiest kids. Like, you should have known. And you go, wait a second. This entire time.
But these doctors are telling people to prescribing it. People actually trust their doctors.
Yeah, and these corporations pay for their own studies as well.
Yes, that's where I was just going to go. And the scarier thing is
Pfizer found out that Pfizer's not dangerous. That was a nice thing.
When you start looking at the unchecked balances, right? The whole thing with what we're doing, right? The MAHA movement, right? Make America healthy again. And again, this is the people's movement. It's not RFK. Moms and dads will make America healthy. It's what kind of food you're bringing in. It's what kind of supplements are you giving your kids. RFK is pushing for ozone treatment, hyperbaric oxygen. He's looking for us to be able to have nutraceuticals, right? Which is a word that most people have never even heard of. And then you've got like the cutting edge guys that are out there, like Dr. Brian Ardis. The second that he started talking about nicotine being used in IVs to break up glioblastoma brain cancers inside of the body and saying that it's helping with and helping with lots of other things, now all of a sudden the government cares about us. Price of cigarettes have gone up to $10 a pack, and they don't want anybody taking these Zen nicotine patches, and they don't want you slapping it on your arm, because now all of a sudden that they're saying, hey, you know what? And there's like over 700 different types of foods that contain nicotine. Most of your nightshade vegetables have nicotine in it. You were mentioning SSRIs. At airwaterhealing.com, we have been following Dr. Anna Mihalcha. Incredible woman. The research that she's doing. Did you see the video of RFK taking the methylene blue on the airplane? Methylene blue is anti-parasitic, but it's also antiviral. This has been around for thousands of years. As soon as I'm going to try to say this so we don't get in trouble, but not my words. Mel Gibson went on Joe Rogan and said that he had 4 friends with late stage cancer. One of the things that they were using was methylene blue. Also had mentioned ivermectin, fenbendazole. We don't manufacture that. Our nanotechnology research that we're trying to get out there is letting people know there are things that you can do, like taking calcium EDTA, taking a toxin binder that we manufacture, and taking methylene blue, and we have regimens for all of these things. But I will be very clear, if you are on an SSRI, you cannot take methylene blue. You cannot. Because the SSRIs are also helping with serotonin. This will be a very bad side effect. So if you are an antidepressant, do not purchase methylene blue if you're not planning on stopping taking your SSRIs, because there could be some very, like you said, was my medicine working? Is it helping? It made it worse. And there's so many parents out there that are now concerned. You've got little Becky, right? You send her to school. Do you know how many thousands of schools are having psychiatrists that are looking at children and they're sitting in there like this? You've got ADHD. You've got ADD. There was kids
maybe
that
school's just boring.
Yeah.
they were sitting.
Why are little boys in seats? Go outside.
There's parents that are now suing the school district saying you sent my child home with like Prozac, like getting them hooked at a young age. And that's another thing that I think that Doge needs to expose is the abuse of psychiatric power in the school systems, because they're not doing stool samples. They're not doing blood work. They're not looking at genetics. They're just saying Johnny's staring at a light and looks a little bored. We're going to diagnose him with ADD or diagnose him with ADHD.
And it's bad. The long-term effects, man. I used to be on a lot of pills, and you know, I have a lot of long-term health problems, I think, from them. You know, I was on Adderall for like over a decade, SSRIs for like 4 or 5 years, and then also was on, then like that caused problems with sleep, so they had me on Ambien, and now I can't remember anything. So I was on Ambien, Adderall, and Prozac at the same time. And I almost killed myself. And when I stopped taking all that stuff, my brain went back to normal, and I didn't realize that I had been poisoning myself. And I think that what we're in a stage now, I want to wrap this up. We'll have to talk more in the future as well. I know that we have the studios in a similar place to your business, so there'll be a lot of future opportunities to talk about other things. But kind of in conclusion here, the reason why I think a lot of times hearing conversations like this are difficult for people, and why the first thing you want to do often, and maybe you're ending this and you still don't want to believe anything you've heard, even though, oh, it was interesting, but I don't believe any of it, is because we have this issue now where, because we think we're so smart, right? Because of this evolutionary lie and this idea that everyone was just dumber before us, and we're at the apex of humanity, simply because we have a technology boom, you know, that we think that we know better. And when you realize that despite how smart we are, we really are kind of retarded in a lot of ways. That technology itself has been traded for common sense, and people are walking around actually depressed, feeling meaningless, very unhealthy, with all types of terminal diseases, and can still go, you know what? We know better than everyone else before us. And it's such a strange God complex that it's like, look in the mirror. You know, you're not doing well. Society's not doing well. Okay? You know, it's like things aren't going good for us. People are very sick. People are very, very hopeless. And maybe we should reevaluate what's going on. But you know why people don't want to do this? Because they don't want to admit they were wrong. They don't want to admit that they hurt their kids. They don't want to admit, you know, that everything you believed, you know, is a lie, because it's a very, very difficult thing to accept that you were lied to and that you played into the lie. So everyone wants to forget 2020. That's why no one wants to, you know, people don't even want to talk about the censorship that happened around 2020 and that election and what was going on. People don't want to talk about it because why? Because they were wrong. They were wrong. And it hurts to be told. It's pride and it's ego, and pride is one of the most difficult sins to deal with. So, you know, I just want to remind people, it's okay to struggle with pride. You know, we all do. But at a certain point, you got to humble yourself. And that's why you need God, because you need to believe in God to humble yourself. And you need to say, hey, the devil is so cunning, right? he lies. He's the father of lies. And that doesn't mean that he walks around just, denying that you have an addiction or whatnot. It's that he's created lies into everything, as what we're talking, even down now to the cellular fiber of who we are. He wants to separate us from God. And so maybe we'll talk in the future about transhumanism more, because you guys probably know a lot about that. That would be a very interesting conversation.
All along
Yeah.
This is allowing the devil, any evil, into our bodies on a cellular level through the nanotechnology, because this is all going to be AI run.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
I wasn't even making a joke when I was telling you.
I was already scared of AI.
Your Wi-Fi tower monitoring your nano biosensors, reporting back to your personal DigiTwin. This is all IEEE documentation and running predictive analytics. So they know that if they keep you or prevent you or stop you from doing certain things to be your better self, you'll never uprise to overtake any of it. You'll never get to be your better self.
Testosterone. I mean, that's why they already effectively neutered the entire male population.
Oh,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, think about how many women are on birth control in this country, right?
And it's
you
in
go
the water
through and you think
supply
about
system.
what's in the water supply, right?
Yeah.
And everything that we're trying to do is we're trying to custom tailor and have solutions, right? We give a lot of good information that's out there, organizations that you can go and say, hey, this is the water that I look, this is the water that I have. This is what we tested. There's people that are holding people accountable. The one thing that RFK, I think, is bringing to this country is transparency. He said right to the American people, my boss likes to eat McDonald's cheeseburgers. I'm not going to take that away, but I want the public to know what's the long-term effect. We're chronically ill. We're one of the sickest nations in the world. If the and all of the things that are out there, pharmaceutical, the food that we're eating, if all of that was meant to make us live longer, then why is America going to be 70 in life expectancy among developed countries? Yeah. We're on a slippery slope, and it's getting worse. That's why they're trying to do it. And, Elijah, when you mentioned the parents, like they're so aggressive about something that maybe they made a mistake, right? And instead of owning up and loving it, what I thought about was boa constrictor. There's a video of a boa constrictor that goes over, it was in like a tool shed, and it accidentally went over a saw. And all he had to do was let go, but the constrictor starts tightening in on that saw, and ultimately it kills itself because he was attacking, he was upset. And we have to let that fear go. Right. We have to let that fear go. We will continue to support people like you, Elijah, and get this information out there. And if anybody wants to learn about what we're doing, you guys can go do your own research, right? I love trust but verify. Trust and prove all things. Yeah. Jesus fasted for 40 days before he could do his first miracle. He had to go out there and he had to be tempted to see what he was made of. I implore every one of your listeners to see what they're made of. You want to try the calcium EDTA? You're going to be having a long journey. I think you're going to have a successful career. I love what he's shadowing you and you shadowing Elijah. Yes. You're going to learn the tricks. It's going to be incredible, but we have to start helping people to get healthy. We've got to give the body what it needs. If we could share, I'd love to do something special for you guys. We normally don't ever do this, but if anybody wants to use code MAHA, any of the products that we're developing or working on, we'll give them a big discount, free shipping anywhere in the U.S. Just use coupon code MAHA at airwaterhealing.com.
Amazing. And so in conclusion, I think I understand what you're saying now, and I think I didn't understand it in the beginning, again, because of the confusion. But this is obviously a point to say that there is no greater time than this to be vigilant and alert, right? To be sober minded, and this is coming from someone who likes a good beer or whatever, But it's sober minded doesn't just mean not using drugs and drinking, right? Yeah,
correct.
Like because there are like the Bible said, right? Even like take a little alcohol for your stomach or whatever for the ailment he had. Things do have use. The point is being vigilant is like just don't be hard-headed to the point to where you need to be willing to admit that you've been wrong a lot, and it's have some grace on yourself and just put it before God. So I tell people, it's like, you know what? That's crazy. I hurt my own children, or I've been hurting my own body, or like I have cancer because I chose the wrong products that I used in my life, right? Like it's a hard thing to deal with, but the nice thing is God does have grace on us, and there are solutions, and sometimes you could end up not finding the solution to find healing in your bodies to be working the way it should be because you're just unwilling to admit the truth. So please do that. I'll give you the final word as well, if you want to close us out.
I was going to say some of the best lessons I've learned were through making mistakes. And I tell you what, I
My
made
entire
plenty-
life.
I made plenty of them, and
Yeah.
those are the hardest and most effective, and have like really struck hard inside. And I've repeated them, but those like coming out on the other side of that has been so beneficial.
I was mentioning to him when we first started this podcast, you know, and this is God. If you don't think that God works in mysterious ways, this man right here has been literally ridiculed by everybody in his community. He used to be 2 years out. I've seen the books. 2 years out to get an appointment to get a tattoo from him. And when he stood up, he started working on paintings that were on the right side, right? Doing Trump paintings. He was releasing these things that he was finding. People literally stopped following him. He went from 20,000 followers on Instagram. It kept going down and down and down and down. And I've always told Seth, I say, the Lord will always restore what the cankerworm took. And yesterday, if anybody didn't see it, the richest man in the world, Elon Musk, was handed.
I was gonna bring it up.
Was handed a painting of Seth. Now, yes, for the world to know that painting was not done. It was only 30%. A federal agent came up behind, ripped it out of our hands, and Elon Musk stood up and said, "I want it. I'll take it. I'll take it." So, for somebody who has been doing the good fight, I think so much attention is going to get brought to our apparel brand. We want to give you guys some free shirts. We'll get you guys all the swag. We'll get you some swag. But how God blessed you, brother. And I want you to know that that was truly a testament of your faith, what you're going through, your relationship with your daughter. The world saw your artwork.
It was pretty wild and exciting. But if I can leave a message for
Yeah,
Elon,
please.
Elon, the painting is only 30% complete. There's tons of information that needs put into that painting. I would love to have the opportunity to have the painting back. It was originally intended as a gift for you. I would be more than happy to give it back completed. Right now, it's an underpainting. Your face is yellow. You look like Elon Mustard.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's good to go. Anyway, if you wanna go ahead and find these guys and you wanna follow them, Sarah, how can people find you online? What's the best socials?
Yeah, follow my Twitter. It's what I use most. Sarah C. Stock on X. Sorry, X, not Twitter.
Yeah, on X. And then how
Sorry,
can people
Elon.
follow you guys online?
Perfect. My handle on Twitter is Air Water Healing, and my Instagram is Maha with Mike. And then also air every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at noon on Lindell TV. So you can follow us on our Rumble channel.
Elon actually took my Twitter, but I have a new one, and it's called Papers_Jew76. Papers, Jew. Your papers now. And you can find me on Instagram at TATJEW77, Tattoo77.
Incredible. Anyways, guys, for shout out to my guest today, as well as to my lovely co-host, who you'll be seeing more of around here. So make sure you support her. She's sort of not new to the scene, but she's going to be joining us for a lot of future and upcoming work and doing a lot of amazing stuff that we work on. As you know, I run quite a few podcast shows and companies, and you guys supporting the show is absolutely amazing. So don't forget, please sign up directly to our locals. If you want to support us, the best way to do that is at ElijahSchaefer.locals.com. The link's in the description. You can join our community. It's free. It literally doesn't cost you anything, but if you do want to join up as a member, it keeps content like this going. And it's thanks to you guys that we're able to have real conversations and not be held down by any big networks, by any censors, any gatekeepers. And it's been so nice. I used to have so many shows that I would see the final product and it was just all the good parts were taken out by the editors, and entire episodes that were truthful from 2020 to the Ukraine war, the networks wouldn't even put up. And I ended up being right about things because they were too afraid of the risk of truth. Truth was always too risky. And you know what? Truth is risky, but it's a risk I'm willing to take. And if you take it with us and remain with us, we'll continue to be able to take this journey together. So thank you guys for supporting us as always. Have a great rest of the week, and may God bless the United States of America. I'm signing out.